Hello, everybody, and welcome to my first-time homebuyer masterclass that we do monthly. Super happy to have all of you here. We are streaming this on multiple platforms. So we have some people that are joining us live in our webinar. We've got other people that are joining us via Facebook and YouTube. So everybody who's joining has the opportunity to join into the conversation. So if you have questions about anything that I'm talking about, just post it into chat. Whether you're watching the webinar, you can post it into chat. Whether you're watching live stream through a social media channel, post it into chat, and we will make this as interactive of a conversation as we possibly can. So let's go ahead and dive in to what we're going to cover tonight. So 3 things we cover every single month in our first-time homebuyer masterclass. The first thing I talk about is the market. What's going on with the market? Where are things going with interest rates, with house prices, and a little bit of education on the market. The second thing I talk about is a specific topic of that month. This month's specific topic is hacks to help you with a down payment. A lot of people are struggling in purchasing a home right now. And the biggest struggle beyond affordability, beyond monthly payment and being able to pay the monthly payment is how am I coming up with the down payment? Because I can't afford to save for that down payment because I'm spending so much money on bread and on eggs and on gasoline. And so I'm going to show you some hacks, some different ways to think about down payment and how to come up with a down payment. Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about is the actual process of buying a home. So I'm going to talk to you about what steps you can take to buy a home, what the banks look for, how we really look at qualifying you and the things that you need to think about as you go through the process of buying a home. That segment is pretty much the same every month. So I cover a little variety to it, but if you've watched my masterclass before, you can check out at that point, or you can listen again. It's really, really good. But the market update is different every single month because the market changes and the topic is different every single month. So even if you watch today, come back in future months. We do it typically the third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Excuse me. All right, so let's dive in to the first topic. First topic being, is now a good time to buy a home? And really, what the heck is going on with the market? That's a tough question to answer because it's really about predicting the future, okay? I will tell you that for a lot of people, it's impossible to buy a home today. And it's frustratingly impossible because I have so many of my clients that have waited and they're patient and they've said, okay, John, I've rearranged things and I figured out a way to change my withholdings and to be able to get a pay raise. And now I can afford a monthly payment. And then bam, interest rates go up again. And we're seeing interest rates continue to tick up. And so for a lot of people, unfortunately, it's creating a situation where they literally cannot afford the monthly payment. And that to me is the most important thing. If you're sitting here thinking, you know what, John, I want to buy a house. And for all the reasons that I'm about to discuss on why it's a good idea, you say, I'm in. I think it's a great idea. The problem is if you can't afford the monthly payment, you're going to fail at something. Either you're going to fail at owning the home and you're never going to get to the other side where you can see the benefits, or you're going to fail in making your payments on your credit cards. You're going to hate your life because you're not going to be able to do anything as far as going out and enjoying yourself at all. Now, I think there's a worthy amount of sacrifice that somebody can do to put themselves in a position to be able to afford a home. But there's a point when we're going too far. And so I'll tell you that for a lot of people right now, we're hitting that point. Rates are over 8% in most situations. So we're pushing, we were at 6% 6 months ago, 9 months ago, and everybody was thinking, man, that's pretty high, and I can't wait until it goes back to 5.5 or 5 or 4.5. And here we are, 2% higher than that. We're literally pushing 8% interest rate. And the question is, where are rates going to go from here? And so I want to explain to you a little bit of the dynamic of what's happening with interest rates. And I want to help you understand how that applies to the market and the Fed and what's happening specifically with something called the 10-year Treasury. So I'm going to take about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to explain to you this concept of what is a Treasury bond and why does it matter to mortgage rates. So first and foremost, a Treasury bond is literally just debt that the federal government is issuing. The federal government is saying, hey, I need money. The government needs a lot of money. And they have said, I'm going to pay back this money in a certain amount of time, and I'm going to pay you a certain amount of interest. Now, the market determines that interest rate based upon what's going on with the economy, lots of factors, okay? But the federal government, and you can argue with me as much as you want, but the federal government is considered the safest investment in a bond that you can get anywhere. Because the US government, even though we've come close to shutdowns and we can't balance our checkbook, the fact is we always pay our bills. And so the government's considered the safest risk. And today, you can take your money. If you had $1,000, you could take it and buy a 10-year treasury bond, kind of like a savings bond back when I was a kid, and it would pay you almost 5% interest every single year guaranteed. And then at the end of 10 years, you'd get your $1,000 back. That's a pretty good deal. So you're earning $50 a year in interest on your $1,000, and it's pretty much guaranteed income. Now, you can also say, you know what? Instead, I'm going to invest in a mortgage. I'm going to loan the money, pretend it's a mortgage, but we're talking about bigger numbers here. And you say, instead of loaning my money to the government, I'm going to loan my money to Bob. Bob's buying a house, and I'm just going to help him. I'm going to give him the down payment for a house, and I'm going to give him my $1,000 to do that. And Bob says, dude, I'll pay you the same 5% the government was going to pay you. Would you accept that? No, none of us would. Why? Because Bob is one person. Bob's a bigger risk because there's a chance Bob could lose his job. There's a chance anything could happen to Bob. Very, very little chance anything's going to happen to the federal government. So therefore, you say, gosh, in order to invest in Bob, I'm going to need to make more money, Bob. I'm going to need you to pay me a higher interest rate. Instead of paying me $50 or 5%, I need you to pay me $80 or 8% per year. Because for $80, I'd be okay taking the risk on you. But what if Bob said, you know, the 10-year treasury, what if you said, Bob says, okay, hey, I need another $1,000. Forgive me, let me just continue this and start that last part again. So you loan Bob the money and he's paying you 8%. You're like, okay, you're happy, great. Now, down the road, somebody else comes to you and says, hey, I want to do the same thing you did with Bob. Can you loan me $1,000? I'll pay you the same 8%. And you say, well, hold on a second. The federal government is now loaning money and paying back at 7%. So no, I'm not going to loan you at 8% because I can send my money down the street to the government, to the U.S. Treasury, and they pay me back at 7%. So no, I need you to pay me at least 10. So that difference, that markup is called the spread. And so what I'm referring to is mortgage rates are always more expensive than the 10-year Treasury, but they move pretty similarly because Wall Street investors have the choice of, hey, I can invest in the 10-year Treasury and it's pretty safe, or I can invest in a mortgage. I'm going to make more money, but it's riskier. So it's a trade-off. Now, having known that, let's throw in a wild card. What if Bob said, hey, John, you know, before you give me this money, you're probably going to check my credit. Yeah, I am. Okay, well, you know, I'm really not doing so well. I haven't paid my bills very much lately, and I'm about to file bankruptcy. And you said, well, Bob, I'm not comfortable with this. He goes, yeah, but I really, really need the money. You say, well, Bob, I'm not going to loan it to you at 8% because, you know, there's a bigger risk that something's going to go wrong. And so I need more than just 3% above what the federal government is paying. I need 4% more. So you got to pay me extra. And Bob says, okay, fine, I'll do it. Now, what that refers to isn't necessarily your credit score. What I'm referring to is the risk associated with mortgages goes up and down. Right now, the housing market is in turmoil. It's in turmoil, as I've talked about already, and I'll continue to explain, that there's a lot of people out there who are saying, gosh, I don't know if the market's going to crash. I don't know if the economy is going to crash. I don't know that either one of those things are going to happen. But if I'm investing $1 million into mortgages, I'd be way more worried about it. And I'd probably want to earn more interest. So sometimes the 10-year Treasury goes up and mortgage rates go up even more. Sometimes the 10-year Treasury goes down and mortgage rates don't go down at all. So they move similarly, but the spread or the difference changes based upon the risk. Now, why does this matter? Why am I spending 5 minutes explaining this to you? Because the 10-year Treasury right now has hit a peak that we have not seen in the last 16 years. And it is really hitting a tipping point that is pushing interest rates higher. So the question is, do we end up with the 10-year treasury going even higher than it's at right now? It's at 4.96 as of tonight, and it's Thursday, October 19th. Okay. Why does this matter? Because these are the questions, these are the factors that are going to determine what you're going to pay in interest for the next 12 to 36 months. Because when you're buying a home, you can't say, hey, John, I'm out shopping. Can I lock my interest rate? You can't do that. What you're doing is you're basically saying, hey, I'm out shopping for a home, kind of like you're saying I'm out planning a cross-country driving trip. Can you prepay for your gas at every gas station across the country? Nope. So when you're budgeting how much money is it going to cost you to do a cross-country driving trip, guess what? You kind of got to guess. But the day you get in the car and you start driving, each subsequent station that you go to, you just have to pay whatever the cost is. You don't have a choice because you're on the road. Same holds true for mortgage rates. When we're shopping for a home, your interest rate's not locked. So you've got to pay really close attention to where are rates. And I have tools that will help you do that. I'll show you one of those tools as we're going through this presentation that will help you keep track. Because unfortunately, too many of my buyers are going out there and writing offers and not checking with me before they write the offer to see, hey, where exactly your interest rates right now compared to 2 months ago when I got my offer accepted or when I got my pre-approval letter. So if you are committed to buying a home today, you're crazy. No, I'm kidding. You're not crazy, but you have to understand what the benefits are to buying a home today. And it's really what Warren Buffett said, which is I'm greedy when others are scared and I'm scared when others are greedy. Right now, the housing market's on sale. Right now, you have an opportunity to get a home and get seller credits and get a home and negotiate and be able to get down payment assistance. Because if you ask your friends or yourself who tried to purchase a home back in 2020 to 2021, there were so many people throwing so much cash at homes that if you didn't have a big down payment, the seller wouldn't consider you. Now we're in a market where the seller will consider you. And I have so many buyers who were so frustrated in 2021 and 2022 because they didn't have a big down payment and they couldn't get an offer accepted. And so we wished, man, I wish there was a market where I could get my offer accepted. Well, now we're in that market. Sellers cannot be as picky, and as rates continue to move up, sellers even less pickier. So the thing is, you have to be willing and able to hold on for a few years. And how long that is exactly is going to depend on when interest rates start moving back down. I have zero doubt interest rates will move back down. I just don't know when, and I don't know if they're going to move up anymore between now and then. Now, I'm not telling you they're going back to 2.5%, but I think a 4 or a 5% interest rate, we'd all be very, very happy with. But here's the thing you have to remember. If you wait until interest rates go down to buy a home, you're now part of the masses. You're now part of everybody else who's been sitting on the sidelines, and now you're going to be competing with all of those people to buy a home. And that's going to do what to the price? It's going to drive it up, and it's going to increase your monthly payment. And so everybody says, John, I'm going to wait until interest rates go down so that I can have a lower monthly payment. But I don't know that you're going to have a lower monthly payment because everything I see says there's still not enough homes out there for the number of people that want them. And so the people who buy now, they lock in today's price. They've got a higher interest rate, but as interest rates come down, you can refinance. If you wait, good deal. You didn't have to pay today's interest rate. You get to have a lower rate, but you likely have to pay a higher price for the home. That trade-off is what concerns me the most. But I'll tell you, if you cannot survive until then, you should not buy a home. You need to make sure that your budget can afford today's payments, because as we're pushing, 7.5 is a great rate as of today. I just locked a client today at 8.625. Now, everybody's interest rate is different depending upon their credit score, their loan amount, the type of loan they're doing, lots of different factors. But the fact is, I just locked somebody today at 8.625. I locked somebody else today at 7.75. So there are definitely a range of interest rates, but that's a pretty high range. And so if you're feeling nervous, but you've never run the actual numbers, you need to sit down with me and run the numbers. Because you have to know what are my options and what are the numbers really look like for me. Because we cannot make logical decisions without facts. Otherwise, it's just emotional. And I understand buying a home is super emotional, but the decision to not buy a home because you think the interest rates are too high, that's the wrong decision. I'm not telling you shouldn't. I'm not telling you that that's a wrong conclusion. I'm saying you should make that conclusion based on facts, not based on, hey, well, the internet says the payment is this. The internet's wrong most of the time. So you need to sit down with somebody like me and go through that information. So hopefully this has helped as a reminder, because we've got a lot more people that have joined on different platforms. So no matter what platform you're on, if you have questions, post it in the comments in the platform you're in. It'll pop right up here on the screen. The first person to say something nice to me will get their name on the bottom of the screen. You get to see yourself in lights. It's really, really fun. Anyway, please make this interactive. Please share with me any questions you have about anything. I'd be happy to make this interactive as we go through. So our second segment, before I go on to our second segment about down payment hacks, I want to make sure that if anybody has questions about, is it a good time to buy a home or anything I talked about, please post them into chat now so that I can discuss that before I move on to the next topic. As of right now, it does not look like I have any questions. So let's go ahead and move on to the second segment of our show. So the second segment, down payment hacks. Here's the deal. I talked about affordability being a major issue, and it is. But I'll tell you what, for a lot of people, they're already dealing with high rent payments and they're dealing with high gas prices. And they're saying, you know what, John, I'm kind of okay with the monthly payment on the mortgage. I'll get a renter. I'll get somebody to come in and help me with making the monthly payment by renting out a couple of rooms to some people. By the way, that's a really good idea. I can't count the rental income from the rental of the rooms, but it's still real dollars. I heard a story the other day about a client, a home buyer, who was very worried about how to make the monthly payment. And then they realized, hey, I'm a nurse. There's a lot of nurses that are in the hospital with me that need a place to stay. And they ended up finding two nurses that would rent a room for $1,000 a piece. So the house payment's $3,400 a month. But this woman is getting $2,000 a month from two of her coworkers that are going to live in the house with her. And now her portion of the payment, $1,400 a month. She gets to keep all the equity. She gets all of the tax write-off. She gets all of the appreciation from the home. And she's got two other people that are living there that are paying the lion's share of her mortgage payment. That is a way to think about, how do I deal with the monthly payment once I have a home? The problem is, how do you come up with the down payment? Well, I'll tell you, the first thing you have to know is you don't need as much as you think you need. You can get into a home with as little as 3% down. Just remember, you need to have money for closing costs as well. So closing costs are theoretically another 3 to 4% of the purchase price. Now, I'll explain in a few minutes when I go through the process of buying a home, and I have a chart that talks about who can pay for those fees. And so you'll see that some of the fees, the down payment can be paid by certain people, the closing costs can be paid by certain people. But the fact of the matter is, you have to figure out, how am I going to save anywhere from 3 to 5 to 8% of the purchase price? Ooh, I've got my first question. All right. So let's go here. All right, great question. So Herbert Jimenez says, do you have to have a contract for the renters? That's a great question. So you should have a contract for the renters because it protects you and it protects them. Because you want to be able to outline what their rights are and what your rights are, what you're expected in a monthly payment and how much you're going to receive. Maybe it's an issue of, what if they pay late? Is there going to be a late fee? How do they pay their payment? Lots of things you need to cover. But I want to remind you of one thing that I said, which is, I cannot count the rental income of a room as part of your qualification. So you don't need to worry about, gosh, how do I fill out that contract to make sure that John can use the income to qualify me for a mortgage? I cannot. I have to qualify you based on your income and other income sources, but border income is not one of those. But do not let yourself get in a position where you let somebody move into your home without a contract, because only bad things can happen. No matter how much you trust them, no matter how long you've known them, putting it in writing makes it clear for everybody. And I strongly, strongly recommend it. So Herbert, I hope that makes sense. And let me know if you have any other questions. Anybody else who has questions, feel free to post those as well. All right. So How am I going to come up with this 3 to 5 to 7% for a down payment? So let's go through some of the options and some of the things you can do. The first, I'm going to talk about some programs. One of my favorite programs right now, there is a grant out there that will provide you $10,000. It's called the Housing Affordability Fund, and it's only in the state of California. Now, there are income limits, so you cannot make over a certain amount of income based upon your family size. You have to be a first-time home buyer, and you have to be in an underserved community. Underserved community is, by the definition that this program wrote up, is one of 3 categories. Either you are a person of color, you are a person with a disability, physical or mental disability, or you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community. If you are in one of those 3 underserved communities, and you're a first-time home buyer that's buying in California making less than 120%, I believe it's 120, let's just go with it, 120% of the area median income, then you qualify for a $10,000 grant that never has to get repaid. It is an absolutely amazing program. All right, let's go to a couple other questions here. Excuse me. All right, so I got a question from Liliana. She says, what if the property has an ADU? Can you count that as rental income? That's a fantastic question. So sometimes. It depends on what program we're using. So ADUs are amazing. There's more and more of them coming out all the time, more and more of them being built. The rules have been relaxed for ADUs. So I think it's an amazing way for us to build more units of homes for people to live in. The problem is the mortgage industry takes a while to catch up. So the first of the mortgage guidelines to recognize this is Freddie Mac. So Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are the 2 entities that create conventional rules. And Freddie Mac said, you know what? We will let you, Liliana, we'll let you count rental income from an ADU. The problem is you have to find renters that are renting in your community in ADUs so that we can see that there's a demand for ADUs to be rented and how much those ADUs are being rented for. You also have to find at least one other home that is sold recently that has an ADU. So there's some challenges there if you're buying a home with an ADU and wanting to count rental income, but it can be done. And the more and more people that are buying homes using rental income, the better, or using ADUs, and building them and selling them, the more it will be available for universal application. Right now, it's out there for one of the loan programs, and it's hard to jump through all the hoops, but the answer is absolutely yes, we can. Angelique has a question. Can the interest rates be bought down? The answer is yes, 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 you can buy down an interest rate. The challenge is the state of California limits you on how much I'm allowed to charge you as the buyer to pay for buying down an interest rate. And right now, the fees are already getting pretty high. And the challenge is, can we afford, will the state let me charge you even more in buy down to buy down the interest rate? And in some cases, the answer is yes, but in some cases, the only way to buy down a rate is to get a credit from the seller. So that's where having a great realtor, Angelique, by the way, is a great realtor, but that's where having a great realtor can really help you to navigate those waters, because if you need a seller credit, you've got to look for the right property under the right circumstances, but a great realtor can absolutely help you make that happen. So thank you, Angelique, for that question. All right, I love questions. Keep them coming. So Constance says, what is considered recently? So that's really, and now I'm going back to, you were talking about the ADU and using an ADU and finding a sale that has sold with a comparable home that had an ADU that sold recently. Typically in the last 3 to 6 months is what the appraiser is looking for. Now, sometimes if it's in a community where there aren't a lot of sales, they'll go back further in time, or they'll go out further in distance. But typically what an appraiser is looking for is homes that are within, 2 to 5 miles and homes that have closed within the last 3 to 6 months. That's ideal because an appraiser's job is to find homes that are similar in style, size, design, in a similar location that have sold recently. So any appraisal that's getting done, you are having to factor in those things: recency, proximity, and similarity. All the itties that we have to worry about with an appraisal. So those three things are considered, whether we're doing an ADU or we're doing a manufactured home or we're just doing a single family home. We have to have other homes just like it that have sold recently, typically 3 to 6 months, within a reasonable proximity. So again, we're talking about within 2 to 5 miles, but we can go further, and with a great amount of similarity. We can't take a home that is significantly different and call it the same as the house that you are trying to buy. All right, so continue the questions coming. I'm going to go back to my hacks. The housing affordability grant is absolutely amazing. If you want to have more information about that, please let me know. I'd be happy to share it with you. Next, and again, we're talking about the institutional ones first. There's some great down payment assistance programs out there. I am not going deep into down payment assistance at all tonight. I'm simply going high level and saying the state of California has a program called My Home that gives you 3 to 3.5% of your purchase price as a loan for your down payment. You don't have to make any monthly payments. By the way, the state of California also has a program called Dream for All. If you don't know anything about Dream for All, sign up for my webinar next Monday night. Dream for All is going to be launched, projected to be launched April of 2024, April of 2024. And I have a webinar next Monday night where I'm going to spend an hour at 7 o'clock talking about what is Dream for All, how does it work. But let me give you a little teaser. It's the single best down payment assistance program I've ever seen in my 22-year career. So if you're thinking about buying a home and you can't afford the payment and you're not going to buy anyway, maybe looking at Dream for All might be a good idea for you. All right, I got more questions. Let's see what we got. Angelique said, what is the minimum credit score for the housing affordability 10,000? There isn't one. There is not a minimum credit score. As long as you qualify for the mortgage, as long as you meet the criteria of one of the 3 underserved communities, as long as you make less than the 120%, I think 120%, as long as you make less than the maximum income based on your family size in the county that you are buying in, and you are a first-time home buyer, and they still have money because they run out of money pretty quickly, and then they replenish it, and then they run out, and they replenish it. But if you meet all those criteria, you got $10,000 you can put towards closing costs, and you never. Oh, by the way, one more criteria: you must use a realtor who is sponsored, registered, part of the California Association of Realtors. So you cannot buy a home without using a realtor, because this fund is actually put on by the California Association of Realtors. So just be aware that's one more component of the requirements. All right, keep these questions coming. I love it. Let's go back to, we talked about Dream for All is coming in April, and I'll be talking about it on Monday. The state has another program that gives you a loan called the ZIP program through the state of California that gives you another 2 or 3% to help towards closing costs, depending upon the circumstances. But none of these are free money. Now, the Housing Affordability Fund is truly free money. You never have to pay it back. It's a grant. It is a unicorn. Those programs don't exist, and I'm super excited about it for the people who qualify. But the My Home, the ZIP program, the Golden State Finance Authority has a program called the Platinum Program that'll give you a loan. Now, this one you have to make monthly payments on it, but the assistance loan, you have to make payments, and it's they'll loan you up to 3 to 5.5% of the purchase price. So another great way to help you come up with your down payment. And then finally, with the state of California, there's another program called the Golden State Finance Authority's Golden Opportunities Program, another 3.5 to 5%. Now, most of these programs cannot be layered together. The ZIP program can be layered with the My Home program. The Housing Affordability Grant can be layered with any of the other programs. So you got a lot of flexibility there, but most of the other programs cannot be layered together. All right. And as a matter of fact, Angelique just asked the question, can you use a ZIP with the Housing Affordability Grant? Yes, you can, because the Housing Affordability Grant is not a loan on title. So hopefully that helps. All right. So what are some other ways? There are so many local down payment assistance programs. You'd be shocked how many programs there are. Now, most of them run out of money pretty quickly, and a lot of them have zero money. But you need to do your research. You need to check out and Google down payment assistance programs in the city of, insert your city here, because there are so many programs out there, and do your research. If you want, you're watching this right now because you're doing your research. You're listening to me because you are a researcher. Do your research. A majority of those programs I have access to. I cannot be an expert in every single program in every single city across the country, but the local municipalities find money, often from the federal government, that they use to support their local community. So there are programs up and down the state of California and across the country that can help you. There's also state-run programs in different states across the country. So don't let yourself say, oh my gosh, there's no way I can be helped, or oh my gosh, I make too much money for any of these programs. There are programs that have zero limits for income. Yeah, zero limit for your income. So don't tell me that you can't get down payment assistance because I make too much money. And don't tell me you can't get down payment assistance because you're not a first-time home buyer. Because some of the programs I just talked about, they don't require you to be a first-time home buyer. So there's a lot of opportunities there to help you out and help you to be able to purchase a home. But let's talk about some of the other things that really go beyond just the normal. How about putting your money into a better savings account? I cannot tell you how many people I sit with on a daily basis that still have their money sitting in the same old savings account that they've had forever, that they used to get 0.0000001% on, and now they're earning 2%. And they're super happy. I'm making 2% interest on my savings account. You can make interest in the 5s right now. So if you are not looking at how much money you're getting paid in interest on the money sitting in your savings account, you are leaving money and throwing it in the garbage. So pay attention, because you don't have to sign a 30-year commitment to keep your money with that bank. You can put it there for as long as you want, because I'm not talking about certificates of deposit. I'm talking about normal savings accounts that are paying over 5% interest per year. So you're saying, I don't know how to save for a down payment. I've got some money set aside. What are you doing with it? God forbid it's under your mattress. There is so much opportunity to have your money make money. They have little money babies. You put your money in there, they come out, and there's more of them. It's really cute. Truly, you have true options that you never had in the longest time to actually make money with the money you have in savings. If you're not doing that, you are not doing everything you can to help put yourself in a position to buy a home. Here's one that a lot of people don't think about. There's a high demand of jobs right now. It's actually part of why the economy is so hot and interest rates keep going up. So use it to your advantage. If you're in an industry where there is high demand, maybe you look for another job that might be giving you a sign-on bonus. Take that sign-on bonus, use it for down payment money, okay? A lot of people are going to say, whoa, John, hold on. You can't change jobs when you're trying to buy a home. Bullpucky? Yes, I said bullpucky. You can. As long as your style of pay isn't changing, the name on the pay stub doesn't matter. If you are paid a similar type of pay, if you're an hourly employee and you make $40 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, you change to another job making $42 an hour and 40 hours a week, you're fine. You're a commission salesperson selling cars and you move from Dodge to Ford. I'm probably going to get in debate here with people who are car buffs. I'm not, but anyway, if you're a Dodge person or a Ford person, I don't want to hear it. The fact is, you're making the same money in a similar job. You can change jobs, and I don't change while you're in escrow. But as you're shopping for a home and you've got an opportunity to get a pay raise, call me and talk to me about it. But likely we're going to say yes. You have an opportunity to get a sign-on bonus? Absolutely call me before you say yes. But it's likely we're going to say yes, and we can help you put more money in your pocket to help pay for a down payment down the road. Maybe you just get a side job. Look, this economy right now, there are so many side hustles going on. Start using them to your advantage. Just like the rental income from somebody renting a room, I can't count money from a side job that you just started for income, but I can count it for down payment, because as long as I can prove where the money came from. Now you say, John, my side job's paying me in cash. Then the secret, here's the hack. You ready? Here's the secret. Spend the cash on things you would have swiped your ATM card for. You go to the gas station every day. I hope not every day. You go to the gas station regularly and you fill up on gas. And how do you pay for it? You swipe the credit card. You swipe the ATM card. Well, how about you just go inside and you hand the cash to the cashier? That's why they're called cashiers, right? They're a cashier. Give them the cash. Therefore, the money you were going to swipe off of your ATM card stays in the bank. And the cash that you got from the side job you were doing, it is spent. Use it to pay for your gas. Use it to pay for your food. Use it to pay for your groceries. That's the key when you're thinking about this, is go get a side job and use the money from the side job to help you pay for the things you were otherwise going to pay for out of your bank account. That's how you use the money. That's how you build a bigger savings account a whole lot faster. All right, a couple more here. Ask your family for help. I was taught by a mentor a long time ago, you'll never struggle in life if you're only willing to ask for help. More often than not, people are willing to help. They just don't know what you need. You didn't ask them. You have no idea if grandma and grandpa wanted to give you an early inheritance. It's really possible that they would rather see you enjoy the money now than to wait until they're gone. And now they don't even get to see you enjoy that money. So give them the opportunity. Ask them, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. And, my struggle right now is with interest rates the way they are and the payments where they are. I really need to save for a big down payment. And gosh, it's just taken me a long time to do it. And I wish there was a way I could come up with a big down payment. Puppy dog eyes, maybe a little teary. I'm just kidding. But truly, share with them what you're trying to do, and you'd be surprised how often somebody might be willing to help. How about getting a loan from your family? Now, this is careful here because you're technically not allowed to get a loan from a family member. It's a gift. But what if you just gifted it back to them in monthly increments? You just returned the favor. I have a lot of family members who come to me saying, John, I have a son, I have a daughter who's buying a home, and I need to help them. I want to help them. The problem is, I don't know where to get the money from. They're sitting on a bunch of equity in their home. They bought their home prior to 2020. The interest rates have come down and they have a super low payment and their equity's gone up and they got a lot of money in the house. And that is the single best place for them to go to help you. The problem is they don't know how to do it because they have a super low interest rate that they don't want to get rid of. And so they can go out and they can get a home equity loan or line of credit on their home and use that money to help you buy your home. Depending upon their financial situation and yours, maybe they just make that monthly payment and treat that as an early inheritance. Maybe you help them make that monthly payment, but it's not going to show up in your name. So we don't have to count that against you, but you need to make sure that you actually have the money coming in to afford to pay them back and help them with that payment, because otherwise you risk them losing their house too. So be really, really careful about that. But a family loan is a good option for a lot of people. And we've got some great home equity loans and lines of credit to help those family members get you the money that you need. All right. Remember that other car that you bought that you just had to have, that hot rod, that really nice Camaro? Yeah, sell it. Get rid of the extra car. Get rid of the toys. Remember that jet ski that you bought that you knew you were going to use and you haven't used it? Yes, sell it. The key is think about what your life is going to be like. You can buy it again in a couple of years when interest rates come back down and you refinance your mortgage. Okay. And the last one I want to talk about before I dive into the last segment here is 401k. We put a lot of money into our 401k. In a 401k, a retirement plan, those funds are critical to help you in your retirement. But they're only going to go so far. You're going to put, a few $1,000s into your 401k every year. And that money, even if it doubles, it still turns into a few $1,000s times 2. But what you have with the home is you have leverage. Because if you put $10,000 into a 401k, and it doubles, you've got $20,000. You take that $10,000 and you use it to buy a $400,000 home. Okay. That $400,000 home goes up by 10%. You've made $40,000. Your 10 grand turned into 40,000, even though the house price only went up by 10%. And you think, well, John, how does that make sense? Because the 401k doubled. The 401k is a teeny tiny amount of money. Doubling a teeny tiny amount of money just gives you twice a teeny tiny amount. But if you leverage your money and you buy a home, that home only needs to go up a little bit and you make way more money. So the key is to think about, man, where am I at in my financial planning? If you do not have a financial planner, talk to me and I can get you connected with a great financial planner. But it's critical as you're thinking about purchasing a home that you look at, what are my investments? How much money am I putting towards my 401k every month? And should I change that a little bit to afford the monthly payment? Should I pull some of the money out of the 401k to afford the down payment? Those are critical things to be thinking about when you look at how to make this home buying process work. So hopefully that helps. Those are my tips for hacks to come up with a down payment. So we're going to shift to the final segment. We're in the final countdown. We're going to cover the final segment, which is really what is the home buying process. So if you've listened to my masterclass before, this is a repeat of what I've covered in prior months. But if you have not, this is why you're here. We're going to cover the home buying process from start to finish, and we'll cover it about the next half hour. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's bring up our slide deck. What do banks look for? There are 3 keys that banks look for when you're purchasing a home. Okay. The 3 things that we look for are cash. How much money do you have for your down payment, your closing costs, and potentially for reserves? Reserves are the extra money you need to have in the bank after you pay for your down payment and your closing costs. Now, the crazy thing is most loan programs don't require any reserves. But I believe it is the single most important factor of success in owning a home is to have reserves, because having reserves means you have a backup plan. Okay. You have a backup plan that if something happens, Liliana, I see your message, and I will absolutely, Liliana asked me to connect her with a financial planner. I will absolutely do that for you. So having a backup plan. Oops, I got to get rid of my banner. Let's get rid of that banner. There we go. All right. So having money in the bank, having a little bit of money in savings, if you can, you need to keep money in the bank. Now, if the question is, I can't buy a house, John, and still have money in the bank, do I not buy? As long as you're okay with the monthly payment, buy. Because you can start in the future putting money into reserves. But before you pay down any credit card debt, before you do anything else, before you buy that nice furniture you're going to put in the house, you need to build a reserve account. You need to have at least 3 months of your mortgage payment and your other bills in savings. That is a safety net that is critical to your long-term success as a homeowner. All right, what's the next thing we care about? Not just cash, but we care about credit. How well have you paid your bills in the past is our best indicator of how well you pay it in the future. That's determined using your FICO score. The FICO score ranges from 350 to 850. I can do loans in most cases down to a 550 credit score. The lower your score, the bigger your down payment is, the higher your monthly payment is, the higher your fees are. So just recognize that credit matters, and credit makes a very, very, very big difference in the type of loan that we qualify you for. The final thing we look at is income. How much money are you making? Because income is really a question of, can I make the monthly payment or not? Because if you're in a position where you're saying, hey, John, I've paid all my bills on time, I have great credit, I got a lot of money for a down payment, and I'm going to buy this $1 million home. And this $1 million home is going to have a payment of $10,000 a month. Of course, I only bring home $5,000 a month. Well, then how are you going to afford the payment? I don't know, but I mean, my credit's so good, I'm sure you trust me, don't you? No, I don't. Okay. Income is a pass or fail scenario. Either you make enough money or you don't. If you're barely not making enough money, you don't qualify. If you barely just make enough money, you're great. We don't care that you make a whole lot extra. Making a whole lot extra, saying, oh my gosh, John, my payment's only $1,000 a month because I'm putting such a big down payment. You shouldn't care about my credit score. We care very, very much about your credit score. Your credit score is critical. And no matter how much your income is, we actually worry more. If you had a bunch of income and you have a bunch of money in the bank, why in the world didn't you pay your bills on time? Think about that. So that's credit, cash, and income. The 3 keys, cash, credit, and income. Those are the 3 keys that we are looking at. All right, I got a question here. Let's see what my question is. Liliana has a detailed question. I like it. So Liliana is asking about credit. Let's go back to the credit slide. And she said, how many open active trade lines do we need? So first of all, a trade line, for those of you that don't understand the term, is an account. It's a credit card, it's a car loan, it's a student loan. So it's funny that you asked that question, Liliana. First of all, for conventional FHA, VA loans, there is not a rule. There's nothing written that says how many do you need. It's when we get outside the government lending box that a jumbo loan or some of the created loans that we do called non-qualified mortgages, they have specific rules that say, oh man, you have to have at least 3 accounts that have been open for 24 months. And if you don't have that, you have to have 1 for 24 months and 5 accounts that have been open for at least 6 months. Lots of different rules there. But here's the reality. The reality is the conventional FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, those are all driven by a computer system. AI, I'm not calling it truly. Everything's AI. My God, AI is the buzzword. So we can call it AI. We make more money, right? Just kidding. So what does this have to do with it, John? It's about what the computer thinks of you. So Liliana, if you have 1 account that you've had open for 3 months, and that's all you have, but you have great credit, the computer system's likely going to say no. I was just talking to my team today about how many clients right now that I have that have an over 700 credit score that cannot do a small down payment conventional loan. It used to be if you were over 680, it was a slam dunk. Anybody could get a conventional loan with 3% down as long as you had the income and as long as you had at least a 680 credit score. Now I'm seeing clients that have 740 FICO scores that the computer says, you know what, I'm just not comfortable with this person. And I think a lot of it has to do with depth of credit, which is what Liliana is talking about here, is trade lines. How many accounts do I have open and how long have they been open? Let's be real. Anybody can juggle 1 ball and be great at it. Y'all agree? Like juggling 1 ball, super easy. I'm just throwing it up in the air. Can you juggle 2 balls? Yeah, really easy. It's literally just playing with 1 ball with each hand. But juggling 3 balls, adding that 1 extra ball makes a significant difference in the level of difficulty. That's kind of what we're talking about here with trade lines. You have 1 credit card, you have 2 credit cards. Now you have multiple. You've had them for a longer period of time. That significantly increases the difficulty of staying on top of it. So if you paid your bills on time and you only have 1 credit card, it doesn't tell us much about your ability to manage more debt. But you have multiple debts for a longer period of time, that makes a significant difference. Great question, Liliana. I appreciate it. Keep them coming. All right. So I said there's 3 things we care about: cash, credit, and income. I lied. There's a 4th thing we care about, and that is the property. The reason I separate this one out is because the first 3 do balance each other out a little bit. If you have great income and great credit, but you have no money for a down payment, I got you. If you have great down payments, not so good credit, but good income, I got you. And if you have great credit, you have a great down payment, but you don't have good income, I have ways to take care of that for you as well. So just be aware, those 3 things balance each other out. What doesn't come into the equation is for the property. So you cannot say, my gosh, John, I know that the condition of this property is not very good, but I got great credit, I got great cash, I got great income. So you don't need to worry about that, do you? Yes, we have to worry about it because the property must meet the guidelines regardless of how well you're qualified. So what are the guidelines? It's got to be worth what you're paying for it. Don't you want that too? Okay. So if it's not worth what you're paying for it, then we might have an issue with it because the appraisal came in less than what you offered on the home, for what you got accepted on the home. So that's the first thing, is the value. The second thing is the condition. No such thing as an as-is sale if you're getting a loan, because we are worried about it from the lending perspective, saying, hey, if you've got all these problems with this house, how are you going to be able to live there while you're fixing those problems? Or are you going to have to pay rent at the same time? And how can you afford to pay rent? Because you barely can afford to make this house payment with where interest rates are right now. So we're worried about that. We're worried about the value of the property relative to condition issues, relative to what happens if you can't make the payment and we have to resell it. And now we got to go fix all those things that you were okay with, but nobody else is okay with it. So just be aware, condition of the home matters. And the condition comes down to what type of loan you're using and whether how critical the appraiser is going to be. But let me be clear. Every property, no matter what type of loan you're doing, must have no health or safety hazards, and it has to be livable. Now, some programs require it to be fully functional with no issues at all. Some of them will say, no, we're okay with you having some issues, but it has to have no health or safety hazards, and it has to be livable. And so if all the windows are broken out and there's glass all over the place, well, first of all, that's not livable. And secondly, there are health and safety hazards with the fact that the glass is all over the floor and people can break into your house and rob you. So you fail on all the criteria in that case. Okay. So be aware, condition matters. The third part of the property is the type of property. You might say, I had somebody talking to me today, I don't remember what we were talking about, but they said, well, why does that matter? Like, why if I'm doing one type of a loan and it's still money, like if I need $50,000 for this or $50,000 for that, why do you care? Can't place what we were talking about. But it matters because the type of property we are securing on impacts the risk associated with that loan. Let me give you an example. Condominiums are considered to be higher risk loans than a single family home. Why? Because condominiums are less desirable. If you think about it, if for the exact same price, you could buy a freestanding home that you don't have neighbors connected to your walls, above you, below you, pounding on the floor, pounding on the ceiling, or for that same price, you can buy a condo where you have all of those things and you are connected and it's a glorified apartment building. Which would you rather live in? You'd rather live in the single family home. So they are more desirable. So when house prices go down, condos are typically the first ones to go down. When house prices go back up, condos are typically the last ones to go back up. And so banks are worried about that. And they say, hey, a condo has a higher risk factor to it. Therefore, we're going to charge a higher interest rate, or we're going to require a bigger down payment, or we're going to charge you more fees, or all three of them. So the type of property. Now, when I say type, I'm talking about, is it a single family versus a 2, 3, or 4 unit property? Is it a condominium? Is it a townhome? Is it a manufactured home? All of those things can make a difference in how much we loan to you, how big of a down payment you have to have, what your interest rate is, and what we're charging you in fees. So just be aware, property matters, and the type of property absolutely matters. All right. So let's go a little bit deeper into all three of these: cash, credit, and income. Cash, down payment, closing costs, and reserves. I think I covered that pretty well the first time. But here's the deal about cash. Cash seasoning is a major problem. You cannot just deposit cash in the bank. I talked earlier about the strategy of using the cash to pay your bills and not spending the money that's in your bank account already. That way, every dollar that goes into your bank account is money that you can source where it came from, and then we can use it immediately. Okay. Cash, as I said, is a 4-letter word. That's why I said don't deposit cash in the bank. You've got to have the documentation to show where the money came from and be aware of the timing of when we need to see the money. So don't just move money around. I had a client that literally asked for a gift from her dad. Her dad said, no problem, done. And I said, what do you mean done? And he said, it's done. I said, what's done? We're just getting pre-approved. He goes, you got the money. It's in her account. Well, I got to prove how the money got there. What do you mean? It's already there. You don't need to prove anything. Well, you're not the bank. You don't get to decide what we have to approve, what we have to document. So documentation really matters, and so does the timing. So just ask me questions about movement of money before you move it around. All right, credit. How well you paid the bills in the past. I've talked about this a little bit already. There's lots of myths about credit, but the most important one is credit repair companies. Be leery of credit repair companies. They scare me because most credit repair companies are doing nothing more than you can do for yourself. But also, equally or more important, there's a very big difference between a credit repair company and a debt elimination company. A credit repair company's job is to improve your credit score, but all they're really doing is disputing everything that you've had late. A debt elimination company, they destroy your credit score, literally destroy your credit score, because their job was not to improve your credit. That you hired them, they marketed to you, they're going to eliminate your debt, and they will, because they get you into collections, they get the accounts charged off, and then finally they end up negotiating and paying a small portion of what you originally owed. It works really, really well, but it kills your credit score. So just recognize credit improvement plans, all they're doing is basically disputing everything and fighting to get them to release something off of your credit report. And debt elimination programs destroy your credit. So let's talk about income. First of all, debt to income ratio is critical. It's the percentage of how much money you are spending every month versus how much money you bring in. But please do me and yourself a favor and do not try and calculate your own debt to income ratio. It is like trying to diagnose yourself by going on WebMD. You do not know what your doctor is looking for. You do not know what I'm looking for. You don't know whether I take your gross income or your net. Do I count your 401k or not? Do I count the child support or not? Do I count the repayment loan on your 401k? Lots of things. What about your taxes that are withheld? How do I account for those? Do not try and diagnose your own debt to income ratio. I don't bite. I don't charge anything to take a look at your numbers. So come see me, set up a Zoom call, come meet me in one of my offices and let me walk you through what that debt to income number looks like so that you know for sure what your options are. Now, income is very challenging for people to understand because they think that, man, I got to have the same job for 2 years. No, you don't. But we do look backwards for 2 years and we look forward for 3. So when you think about any income that you have, we want to know, hey, if it's predictable and stable and we know how much money you're going to make for every single month because it's a fixed dollar amount, I don't care if you just got that job a week ago, I can count the income. But if your income's variable and it changes every single month, maybe you're self-employed, then I probably have to look back over the last 2 years and get an average. So that's where 2 years matters on variable income. But we also have to look forward 3 years. And so we have to say, hey, is this income guaranteed to be received for at least the next 3 years? Now, are any of you guaranteed to receive your income from your job for the next 3 years? No, none of us are. So that's not really reasonable to expect. But what is reasonable to expect is that if you're receiving income for child support and your child's 17 and they're going to be 18 in 6 months, and the child support order says child support ends at the age of 18, you're not going to receive it for the next 3 years. We actually literally have an ending date. If you're on temporary disability and a temporary disability will only last 1 year, I can't count the income because it's not guaranteed to last at least 3 years. So if there's a question about whether it may or may not last, I have to prove that it's going to last for 3 years. Okay. Here's the final thing I'll tell you about income. For people who own a job, people who work for someone else, they work for a W-2, you overcomplicate things. You think that your income can't be counted, and most of the time it can't. You think that it's going to be hard to prove your income, and the truth is it's very, very easy. But the opposite is also true. For those of you who own a business, it is more challenging than you ever wanted it to be. You have a fight every single year between the IRS and the mortgage company, and we both cannot win. So you have to decide, am I going to pay more in taxes to show more income so that I can qualify for the mortgage? Or do I pay less in taxes and show less income, but now I don't qualify for the mortgage? So just be aware that is a battle. And if you're thinking about buying a home and you are self-employed, you need to talk to me early, like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years before you want to buy a home, so that we can game plan, so we can strategize and give you a game plan that's going to work for you. All right, so let's talk about loan types. Okay, so I talked about it a little bit before, but let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's make this a whole lot bigger. So types of loans. We've got conventional, government, and jumbo loans. And you see this chart. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but basically I'm going to overview. You can read it. You can screenshot it and blow it up. This is a high-level overview. This is not the exact guidelines. This is my view of how I look at these 3 types of loans. And what I'll tell you is that when you are doing a conventional loan, that means that you're getting a loan backed by Fannie Mae or backed by Freddie Mac. The difference is negligible. It doesn't matter to you. It's me and what recipe I use to help you get qualified for the home. But when you're doing a conventional loan, the couple things you need to know about conventional loans is they are highly sensitive to your credit and your down payment percentage. If you have great credit and you have a big down payment, you're going to get the best deal. If you have great credit and a small down payment, you're going to get an okay deal. You have a big down payment and bad credit, you're going to get a not so great deal. And if you have bad credit and a small down payment, you're going to get a really bad deal. And so there's a tipping point there that says, you know what, based on, and I see I got a question here from Tricky Tunes, I'll pull it up in a second. Based upon where your down payment compared with your credit score is, you might tip over into a government loan. Government is FHA, VA, and USDA. So be aware that my job, I get paid no different with these different types of loans. You're going to hear from your friends and family, oh, don't do that. That type of loan program is a bad program. The reality is, it's my job to give you the best advice. I am an expert in what I do, and it's my responsibility to guide you through the options and help you make the decision on which one is best for you. All right, so I've got a question here from Tricky Tunes in YouTube. Tricky Tunes says, hello. Hey, Tricky Tunes, how are you? How many years after a credit card debt negotiation can you qualify for a loan? That's a great question. The answer is actually immediately, but it's a different question that matters, which is what's your credit score? A credit card debt negotiation in and of itself is not a penalty period event. Now, what do I mean when I say a penalty period event? I think about like, I don't know, my son's playing water polo. My daughter is as well. So my kids are in water polo right now. And if you get kicked out, then you are literally, your team is down one player for 20 seconds. So you're in the penalty box. You cannot play the game for 20 seconds because you committed a penalty that's worthy of you being in of serving a penalty of not being able to play the game for a period of time. Things that trigger a penalty period is a foreclosure, a short sale, a bankruptcy. Sometimes a late payment on a mortgage can say, hey, you can't have any late payments in the last 12 months. So if you had one 2 months ago, you're in the penalty box for 10 months. But credit card debt negotiations in and of itself, it's not a bankruptcy. There is no waiting period, but it killed your credit score. And so the question really is, how long does it take to recover your credit score? And that's really hard because it depends on what happened for how long. How long did they take trying to get those credit cards negotiated? I've had people who've been in the plans for 1.5 years or 2 years. And so they've had late payments for the last 2 years and they still have not started reestablishing their credit. That's the key phrase, reestablishing your credit. You have to start reestablishing your credit. That's the trick, Tricky Tunes, is you got to start reestablishing your credit to rebuild your score. And that's something I can help you with. I can do a soft credit report. It costs you nothing. It doesn't impact your credit score at all, but it allows me to run my credit simulator. And that's my favorite tool because it allows me to predict the future with way better accuracy than me trying to predict where interest rates are going. It lets me say, what if? What if we add 2 credit cards and we put a small balance on there and we pay off these other 2 debts? What is your score likely to be in 2 months or 6 months or 12 months or 24 months? And it's free. I literally don't charge you anything for that. So if you're in that position and you don't know how to get your credit score up, and that's really what we're talking about here, that's what you need to do is figure out what are the steps through my what if simulator to get your credit score up. So hopefully, Tricky Tunes, that answered your question. All right. So let's start talking about money needed to purchase a home. So when you're looking at purchasing a home, you need to come up with money. Let's make that bigger. You need to come up with money in 2 categories. You need to come up with down payment money. And you need to come up with closing costs. Now, what's crazy is people think down payment money is oh my gosh, I got to come up with 3% down and I'm saving that money. And they forget that you've got to pay the fees to buy the house. There's actually a lawsuit going on right now that could impact how you pay your realtor. Because up until now, the seller always, most of the time paid the realtor that represents you. You didn't have to pay them. And that lawsuit that's in the courts literally this week can impact whether you have to start paying your realtor. And that's a major issue that may come to a head. And I'm not going to go deep into it. If you have questions, I have a video I did last week on my YouTube channel that is titled Why Home Buying is About to Become a Lot More Expensive. So it came out last Friday. If you want to check that out, it was Friday the 13th. Anyway, what are we looking at in numbers here, John? The truth is down payment isn't as much as what people would think. Most people think that they need to have 20% for down payment. They forget and they don't think they need anything for closing costs. The truth is a conventional loan is little as 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer, 5% down if you've owned a home in the last 3 years. But you could do a VA loan. If you're a veteran of the United States military, thank you for your service and for the reward, one of many rewards for your service. You have the ability to get a home with 0 down payment. Okay, so that is Tricky Tunes. I see your question. I'm going to actually cover that in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to set it aside and I'll get back to you on that. So you can do 0 down payment. You can also do it with a USDA loan. USDA is a program that you can use to buy a home in rural areas. So it's specific geographies within the United States. There's income limits. It's really hard actually to qualify for it right now. just based on interest rates and house prices and what their income limits are. So I don't do very many USDA loans in this market. Excuse me. But your down payment isn't anywhere near as big as you think it is. You don't need anywhere near as much money as you expected to need for a down payment. And you can get it from one of three places. You can get it from your own money, you can get it from gift money, or you can get it from a down payment assistance program. Those are the three ways that you can pay for your down payment. But again, the down payment, as little as 0 to 3 to 3.5% down. It's not that much money. The piece you don't pay attention to is the closing costs. The closing costs are an average of 3%, and lately they've been moving up even higher. The reality is that, and I don't have the time to get into it, but the fact is mortgages are becoming more expensive for a lot of reasons. And so I'd probably say it's closer to maybe 3 to 4% in a lot of situations. And even though there aren't very many low-priced homes, I always put the floor, the minimum, and say rarely are you going to pay less than $10,000 to $15,000 in closing costs. Now, the key is for closing costs, you have the same three places you can pay for down payment: your money, a gift, or a down payment assistance program. Can all three pay for closing costs? But on top of that, you can use a seller credit or a lender credit. So you have flexibility in getting money from 5 different places to pay for your closing costs. All right. If you have questions about that, please feel free to post them into chat. Otherwise, let's keep going. Guys, here's the deal. It is tough right now to get a mortgage. It's a tough time to buy a house, but it's a tough time to qualify. If anybody tells you push button, get mortgage, they're lying to you. If anybody's telling you it only takes 24 hours to get a mortgage, they're lying to you. Okay, those are marketing gimmicks. They're great. The ploy works really, really well. But all these things you see on the screen right now, they are major issues that are causing this to be a very, very challenging time. And so the simplest thing I like to tell people is, look, when you are buying a home, the process of buying a home is very, very much like the process of flying in an airplane. So you need to be prepared. If I'm teaching this as a master class, one of the most important things that I have to explain to you is this is not going to be a smooth ride. As a matter of fact, if you're on an airplane right now, they've talked about turbulence being worse now than it's been in a long time. I don't understand why. I'm not an aviation expert or a weather expert, but they're saying turbulence is getting worse and worse. But it's not a sign of a bad pilot. Okay? Your pilot's job is to get you to your destination safely and on time. And sometimes they have to fly right through the turbulence. So just be aware, I'm your pilot. And I am going to run into turbulence. We are going to run into turbulence on lots of different fronts. The biggest front that you're going to run into turbulence right now, insurance. You have no idea how hard it is to insure a property in the state of California right now, and it's getting harder by the day. I have 3 clients right now that are in escrow that are having a hard time getting insurance at a reasonable price. I've got one that said, hey, any house that's over 25 years, we want to see new roof, new electrical, and new plumbing, or we're not going to insure it. So you have these stories about these insurance companies that have pulled out of insuring in the state of California, but don't worry, there's still a bunch of companies that are offering insurance in California. And that's true. But those companies are tightening the guidelines. They're tightening the noose. And they're saying, look, you have to meet all of these rules in order to let us give you insurance. And oh, by the way, we're going to charge you a bunch of money. So as you're going through the home buying process, insurance has become one of the biggest sources of turbulence, but you can't start shopping for it until you get an offer accepted, because the insurability of a home is based on the home that you are insuring and the person who is going to be living in that home. So you cannot simply get an insurance quote ahead of time. The quote is based on that home, but you've got to start working on it immediately. You've got to build relationships with insurance agents and have them on the ready so that when you're ready to write an offer, they can actually look up the insurance quote on the property before you write an offer. Especially if you're in the foothills. If you're in any high wildfire area, insurance is an even bigger issue, and it's becoming a major, major problem. So be aware and pay attention to insurance issues and how much it's going to cost to insure a home. All right, so let's dive into the actual process of buying a home. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. All right, so step 1 is to get pre-qualified. I don't like that word. I like to call it being pre-approved. But really what it is it's giving me all your paperwork and letting me look under the hood. I'm going to check out your cash, your credit, your income, everything that we've talked about tonight. And I'm going to determine if you do qualify for a mortgage. Now, Once you get pre-approved, you're going to have an expiration date on that. It's typically going to be 3 months out. Now, does that mean you can't buy a home 3 months from now? No, not at all. It just means, look, the paperwork you gave me expires, and I don't want you out shopping a year from now with a credit report that hasn't been updated in a year. So we want to stay in communication. We want to refresh that information while you're out shopping. Speaking of shopping, step 2 is to find your home. This is where you need to pick a real estate agent to guide you through the process. Okay, having a realtor on your side is critical because they're the ones that are going to help you locate not just the homes that are on Zillow, but there are homes that aren't listed on the market or are not publicly listed that a realtor can help you find. On top of that, they're there to help negotiate the transaction for you, to help you negotiate the details of how much are you paying for the home and what are the terms on that. More importantly, they're there to guide you on how the market is acting, meaning, should I pay more for this house than what it's listed for, or should I pay less? Sometimes the market dictates that you need to pay extra. Sometimes the market says you can ask for a deal. Sometimes the market doesn't know what it's doing, like right now, and some houses is one way and some houses is another. So you got to make sure you trust your real estate agent that's out helping you find a home. But once you find your home and you get an offer accepted, that is when we lock your interest rate. That's when you talk to me and you lock in the interest rate. We order your appraisal. We update all of your paperwork again, and we send the file to steps 3 and 4, which is processing and underwriting. It's their job to double check everything that I did. Now, here's the scariest part. They're the ones that actually have the authority to issue the loan. I don't. Now, I'm really good at what I do. Most people who do what I do, they aren't that good at what we do. And so it's the biggest challenge in the industry is you've got people who qualified for a mortgage and found out at the end they didn't. The bank yanked it away from me at the last minute. The bank didn't yank anything away from you. The person you were working with was not good at what they did. And so they didn't know what questions to ask. They didn't know what to look at. They didn't know the nuances of the rules. And they said yes when they should not have said yes. That's the reality. Now, some of those situations I can save. Some of those situations I can look at it a different way and make it work, but a lot of them I just can't. And so recognize that the industry is flawed because the person who actually has the authority to make the decision rarely looks at anything until after you're in contract. So that creates some challenges. Once underwriting is finished, approving a loan, then you get to sign your paperwork. Now, signing your paperwork happens with a notary that's going to notarize your signature. You got to have your driver's license, and that's when you bring in the remainder of your down payment and your closing costs. Once that happens, a day or two later, you get your keys. Congratulations. That's the end of the process. Oh, wait, no. Now you're starting the process of home ownership, which is really, really fun. And I'm serious. But I want to talk to you about some of the financial benefits of owning a home. We're wrapping up here. We'll be done in about 5 to 7 minutes, depending upon how many questions we have. But guys, this is an important one that I think people really don't understand. They think the reason you should buy a home is appreciation. Well, that's true. House prices have historically gone up anywhere from 3 to 5% per year on average. Some years are 20%, some years they lose 3%, but on average, 3 to 5% year in and year out. But the reality is you don't see any of that until you sell the home. As a matter of fact, if you want to tap into that equity, you're probably going to pay more per month because you're borrowing the money and you now have to pay back a higher loan amount. So short term, what are my benefits? First of all, your tax write-off is huge. A lot of people, pretty much anybody that can afford to buy a home right now has good income. And so you have good income and you're wasting a lot of it, spending it on taxes to the IRS. And instead, you're going to get a bigger tax refund at the end of the year because you're a homeowner. But more importantly, you can change your withholdings so that you get more of your paycheck every single pay period. That puts you in a position to afford to stretch a little bit more, to make a little bit higher of a monthly payment to afford to get into the housing market today. The final thing is you get forced savings. Every single month, a portion of your house payment goes back into your future wealth as a pay down of your balance. Let's pretend you bought a house for $350,000 and it never went up in price. And you put zero down payment. Guess what? In 30 years, that house is still worth $350,000 and you owe nothing. You have $350,000 of a nest egg because every month you paid down a little bit of that $350,000. That doesn't happen in rents. When you pay rent, none of your rent money goes back into your pocket in the future. So let's look at this math really quick. On a $350,000 home, you're looking at a tax write-off that ballparks around $590 a month. Another $300 a month to go towards forced savings or that pay down on your balance. And then another about $583 a month. And that's just if the house only went up by 2%. Remember, the average is 3 to 5% per year. So this person on a $350,000 home is getting $1,473 in wealth building every single month. So you say, John, I can't afford a $3,500 a month payment. I can only afford $2,000 a month. Well, guess what? When you account for the wealth building of it, your $3,400 a month payment is $2,000 a month. But you have to be able to afford to write the check every month for the $3,400. So that's the critical key. All right, a couple of last things I want to cover. First of all, if you don't already have my mobile app, scan the QR code right now. So open up your phone, scan the QR code that's on the screen right now. You will get a copy of my mobile app. With lots of things you can do in my mobile app. You use it to start the application process with me. Use it to securely upload documents to me. As a chat function, you can communicate directly with me. Constance, I see your question. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'll go back to it. You can, there's a lot of things you can do, but one of the things that it has a payment calculator. And so I want to show you really quick. I'm going to run this short video here. Is it going to go? Hold on. I got to do this a different way. Are you going to run now? Yep. Okay. So you can click on here and you can say, hey, what type of loan am I doing? And you can change the amount. Oh, now I just stopped it again. Okay, start it over. Anyway, you can pick what type of loan. You can change the purchase price. You can change the down payment amount. The interest rate you got to be careful about because the interest rate is just ballparked in there. And we update it every month or so. I think right now, last time I checked, it was like 6.8. It's pretty far behind. But the interest rate can be changed. So just make sure when you go in there, you adjust it up some. Right now, I'd probably be using around 8% as an average interest rate when you're running numbers. Okay. But what this does is it lets you calculate your payment. You get to run a calculation here. You can save this and email it to somebody. You can pull up an amortization chart that shows your monthly payment and where it goes every single month. There are lots of valuable things we can do with it. All right. So I'm going to go back here really quick. Constance has a question. I know it has to do with this slide. So I'm going to bring up her question. She says, I want to clarify. If you own a home, it allows you to change your tax withholding so you can get more take-home pay from your job. That is 100% correct. You have to talk to your tax advisor. So let me close that up. So what Constance is saying is, look, as a homeowner, you will have the ability to write off or deduct from your taxes the interest that you pay and the property taxes that you are paying for. You don't have to pay income taxes on that. Now you get a standard deduction from the IRS. So they have to run a calculation that says, hey, is that standard deduction higher or is my itemized deduction adding these new credits going to give me more savings? Now, when interest rates were at 3%, you didn't get very much interest to write off. But when interest rates are at 8%, you got a lot of interest to write off. That is not a reason to buy a home. Okay. My dad was a tax preparer, CPA, enrolled agent for his entire, most of his adult life. And he always said, don't ever do anything simply for the tax write-off because it never pays. Don't have kids for the tax write-off. It never pays. Don't buy a house for the tax write-off. It never pays. Now, he did say a couple of things. If you have a kid, you want to have the last kid of the year, not the first, because your tax write-off for a kid is based on if you had a kid during that year, you get the tax write-off for the whole year. So if you have a kid on December 31st, you paid for 1 hour of diapers and you got a whole year's worth of tax write-off. You have a kid on January 1st, unless you have the first kid of the year, you get no free diapers and you lose the tax write-off from last year. So all these people who think they're happy to have their first kid on January 1st, make sure you have it on December 31st. That way you get a full tax write-off. I'm not kidding. Anyway, tax advice from my late father. All right. So Constance, that hopefully helps answer your question. Let's get into where do I want to wrap up? Pretty much the last thing I want to talk about is the next steps. So let me open up this screen right here. What are the next steps? So if you are in the market to purchase a home, first of all, if you're not in the market to purchase a home, you've wasted the last hour and 20 minutes. If you're in the market to purchase a home, we need to get started looking at your options. So the first thing is my mobile app. So the top QR code lets you download my mobile app. You can use that. You can also just go to the link right over there that says apply.johnloneking.com, and it'll take you to the website version of my mobile app. That's where you start giving me your information. I don't do a full credit check. I only do a soft credit check. Okay. Full credit checks come later. They cost $46 per person. They have to be done. But sometimes I can give you a pre-approval without a full credit check. Sometimes I need to have the hard credit in order to do it. But I'll let you know what those options look like for you. But that's really the best thing to do because there's no cost, there's no obligation, but it really gives you really, really good information. Speaking of good information, if you have not already done so, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The best thing you can do for me is to share the information and share the link to my YouTube channel to everybody that you know, because I really put a lot of time, energy, and effort into putting a lot of good information out there to help people make good decisions. The challenge is we got to get that good information in front of the right person at the right time. So if you know somebody else who's thinking about buying a home, are kicking tires and thinking maybe someday, that's the perfect person for you to connect to me today, because I'm able to help guide them. I'm going to be in this industry for quite some time. I've been doing this for 22 years. I plan on being in this industry for another 22 years. And I want to help guide you, your friends, and your family into making the right decisions with home ownership. And that doesn't mean you should buy today. The right decision does not mean I'm going to convince you to buy. What I'm going to do is to help you evaluate your options and help you come up with the right decision for you based on your current circumstances. And if it's not right today, that's okay. I'm just going to help you figure out how to make it right for you tomorrow or the next day or the next month, whenever it is right for you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming to the end. So if you have questions, please post them into chat and I will pull them up on the screen and answer those questions for you. Make sure that you scan the QR codes on the side, top one being for my mobile app, the bottom one being for my, my YouTube channel. And I'll fill in for another 30 seconds here in case as I'm watching to see if any comments come up. So don't forget that when you are in the home buying process, it's critical that you are careful about what advice you're taking online. Now, that's kind of silly for somebody to say when they're giving advice online, but be clear. Do not take any advice I am telling you in this video or anything I'm telling you on any of my channels as factual information for you to make a decision on. Because the fact of the matter is, your information, your circumstances are different. And I'm just speaking generically right now. So we need to sit down together and make a game plan. Speaking of a game plan, guys, I'm going to go because I have to get, my kids just got home from water polo and I want to spend time with them and my amazing wife. And so I really appreciate all of you giving me your time and attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening and I look forward to helping you make your dreams come true. Thanks. Good night.